your average house that you sell is around like 5 million, but like your first sale, that was 120,000.
Yep, which I never got paid on. But at the end of the day, people want things that are unique. You want things that not everybody else has. That's the luxury side. So it's in the experience. It's how that house is going to fulfill that family. It's the experience. In 10 months span, I was able to sell over $100 million just in a 7.6 square mile span. And this is a milestone that's never been done before. It's $100 million in closed sales. You'd be surprised, and I'm sure you see this all the time. You just look on any website. You're gonna see paper towel, you're gonna see toilet paper hanging, you're gonna see carpets shifted. They're all there. It takes 5 minutes to reduce all that down. Sometimes you're in June, July, there's pictures of a Christmas tree. Why hasn't that agent taken the extra time and effort to remove that? You have one chance. That's the way I look at it. You have one chance to make one first lasting experience. And it all starts at the front door. And if you have a bad experience at the front door, the rest of the showing is shot.
A lot of people want to break into the luxury market and maybe they sell like one, maybe two here. You consistently sell a handful of homes every single year in the luxury market. What do you think that takes? Because there's stuff you do daily, weekly, monthly to build that clientele.
You know, I think
What would I need to know about you earlier in your life to understand who is sitting across the table today and what made you who you are today?
I started when I was young. I was 18 years old, out of high school, inbound to intended law degree. And I started school and ended up with a marketing degree. What went hand in hand with marketing was obviously sales. And I had a small experience during the summer. I was working, going door to door and kind of presenting myself and selling. And that's where I learned kind of a lot of the street knowledge and the tools to be able to gain people's confidence. And once I was able to master that, I was able to start making money organically and then reinvesting the money.
So now, like, your average house that you sell is around like 5 million.
Correct.
But can you talk about like your first sale? That was 120,000.
Yep, which I never got paid on, which was very interesting. So yeah, I learned slowly that things didn't come that easy. Then yes, one of my first transactions was $120,000. And we had an issue. At the time of closing, the seller was doing financing to the buyer. And unfortunately, something happened in his business where he had a theft and he couldn't afford the seller financing anymore. So what we did is we did a deferral commission to be able to get paid at 12 months there after closing. And sure enough, he followed through and he actually paid and we closed, but I actually got funded 12 months later. And then later on, I sold another property for him, and that's kind of the way things started. And yeah, today, it's a dream where we are and what's happened, but there's been a lot of sacrifice between, 2000, 2024.
I was curious about that because you didn't get paid till way after. Like, was that like demotivating?
It is, but it's one of those things where there's other opportunities that are arising at the same time. And in this business, you have to have 5 spinning plates and you have to have things going. The agent that's doing one deal a year is not going to survive. You have pivot points in your career throughout time that you're like, okay, am I going to continue doing this? And if so, how can I be the best that I can within what I'm going to do?
Everyone can see like all the rankings, all the success that you've had.
Right.
But what they didn't see is everything that built up to that point.
People only see, the glorification, but you don't see the sweat and tears and the sacrifice. And this is a business where a lot of people think, I want to be a realtor. I could create my own schedule. I could do what I want to do. No. When you get to this level, you're committed, and you have to be committed, because if not, somebody else will be more committed than you are. I don't want to say it's 24/7, but it kind of is. I get phone calls at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. There's different time slots too. We do a lot of business with the West Coast time. Yeah. So you got to be available, and it looks easy, but it's not. But then again, I don't know a lot of doctors or attorneys who are, make it overnight. They don't. They put in a lot of education, a lot of school, a lot of dedication, a lot of time. And at the end of the day, there's a reward, but you have to put in the time.
If you were to see yourself younger and say, everything that you know now, here are the first 3 things that you should do if you want to succeed in real estate, what would that be?
You got to get educated. You don't have to have a master's. You don't have to have a doctorate. And school's not for everyone. But when you deal with sophisticated people, they expect a higher level of education. and you have to be knowledgeable. You have to be a professional. You have to be good at your craft. And that comes with time. You could go to any school, you could go to a real estate school, you could have a license, but you haven't learned the business yet. You got to be patient, and you got to just put in the time and dedication to it.
So what's that difference between like just going to show a house, going to work with the client versus being the expert and actually knowing?
Anybody can read a MLS sheet or figure out the square footage of a house or what the case might be. But people are going to want to know a lot more. They're going to want to know about building materials, the area, the trees, the education or in the area, the crime rate. You could kind of figure it out, but it takes time to know it. And a lot of it, in my opinion, is just based on experience.
So what were some of like the earlier like lead sources, the way that you kind of grew your business early on?
You know, real estate is a business that has so many branches. You could do so many different things. You could go into management, you could go into brokerage, you could go into ownership. I always say that there's always something for someone. You just have to figure out what's best for you, what's your niche. Now, till you don't try out a few of those things, you won't find out which is the right path.
So what did you find is your path?
You know, I've hit Control-Delete my business several times. When I started, again, I didn't have clients. I was young. I didn't really know much, but I started realizing that at the age of 20, 21, I didn't want to live at home anymore, and I wanted to be independent. And what better than owning your own place versus renting? So then I realized that there was a good potential investment opportunity. So there was a project on the Miami River that was a really unique concept. It was lofts, which in South Florida, we don't really see the loft concept. That's very more of a northern market. It was young developer who, you know, I was 22, 21, 20, and she was like 5 years older. But she was in her career. She came from Wall Street, had a very good experience, worked with a very reputable builder here and had built up her portfolio. Parents were builders, so she had a very good visual experience of what was coming. And she had a great concept, and I believed in it. And that was the important part. So when you believe in something and you go for something, it's much easier to sell something organically and convince other people of it. And that's exactly what happened. I ended up selling, you know, a handful of units. I don't remember, but it was all to my closest friends. And they trusted me and I believed in the product. And we all were very successful doing it. So as an independent contractor, you create your own schedule, you're going to school, and all of a sudden the builder offered me a great opportunity. It's like, look, you could kind of do your general real estate, go to school, but why don't you come and work with us too? And I always had appreciation for architecture and construction and just, you know, something that you could kind of see in the near future as it came together. And that's what happened. I started working for the builder, and what started as a part-time thing became a full-time career. And it was great. I got to meet a lot of wonderful people. I got to learn things that I never imagined I was going to learn. And back then, you know, we were selling these condos, and they were future investments. And it got to a point where in 2004, 2005, you know, things were just turning so fast. And it was more order taking of selling condos like hamburgers. You know, it was a cheeseburger, it was a triple burger, and it was a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or 3-bedroom. These things were flying off the shelf. We couldn't keep inventory. And when the market got tough here, we had to jump on a plane and recreate new clients. And that's where I took a very nice tour of Latin America and got to meet another great amount of wonderful people, investors, brokers, and created alliances in different countries. Until today, that still benefits my business.
Could you talk about that story? Because I think it ties into all of your new construction experience and then everything that you've kind of built in the relationships.
Yeah, so when, you know, you're working for a builder, you're based inside an office, people tend to come to you. When the local market or the U.S. market started drying out, because it was 2007, the economy was starting to get a little funny, we still had a big baby to sell, which is a beautiful high-rise on the Miami River. And sales were slower, so we kind of made alliances in Latin America, started in Mexico and started working through some neighboring countries. And we would go in and present our product, and people loved it. I was in and out of the country consistently trying to present and trying to get small breakout groups to be able to sell our product that we're selling. And that was a very unique experience. I was 25 or 24, I was at the right age, so I had the freedom to do it and a lot of flexibility. It was thinking outside the box to try to make things happen. And sure enough, we sold 120 plus units on that 12-month leg. But it was a lot of sacrifice. But I learned a lot, and I got to meet great people. We got great sales, and we were successful in what we were doing and the purpose why we did.
We talked about this a little earlier, how like new construction, you're selling a product instead of what's a little bit different with like resale homes.
It's just you have to adapt to everything, right? Everything, you have to look at it. You know, a lot of people don't just look at it one direction. You have to look at it in multiple angles, right? And, you know, a house is a house, right? But it's really a home, and it's a home for one family. So you have to identify what are the best highlights of that home for that buyer. Now, when you deal with some stuff like this, it's a little bit newer. There's different angles, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody might be buying from a foreign state or a foreign country with a purpose in mind. Like right now, as you know, our market is really our national market, our United States market, who is relocating from different states. Especially after COVID, what's happened is people could work remotely. Wait a second, I could be in the state of Florida and pay less taxes. Education, the sun that we have here and the weather we have, people could kind of feel like they could really use those 365 days out of the year for their advantage of living outdoors and enjoying the South Florida lifestyle.
Yeah.
So now, every time there's turmoil in Latin America, one of these countries, what's the capital of Latin America is Miami. So people gravitate to here. There's something for everyone. There's a Greek restaurant, there's an Italian restaurant, there's a Japanese restaurant. I was having dinner last night, and I met a gentleman from Hawaii, and he came 2 years ago because of COVID. We realized that he could pretty much work remotely. And he came here with an idea of being here for 3 months. Now it's been 2 years. He loves it. It's unique how people will really gravitate to the city, and everybody has a different story and a different purpose. So if you're an investor who's looking just to, buy something for the near future of appreciation, although banks are paying good rates, real estate always pays better. Stock market's still doing good, but if the market turns, real estate goes up. And at different points, there's buyers for different things. In the last few years, I've sold houses that people just don't even move into them. I'll hold them for 12 months and they'll make another $1 million. It's absurd what's the appreciation we're seeing, but it's very, very unique. We haven't seen this before. Now, Miami has been a market that has always been underdepreciated, undervalued, because it has so much to offer. And I've known this for many years. When I used to sell back, some of these pre-construction projects, we used to tell people that we weren't selling investments, we were selling homes, or we're selling future condos for people to come and vacation for the summer, or to, send their daughter or their son to University of Miami or to FIU or to different schools here. But indirectly, they were also becoming investments because they were appreciating, especially what we've seen in appreciation growth over the last few years.
I've heard a couple of people say it a lot of different ways. Basically, the best time to buy in markets like Miami, New York is now, because who knows, in 3-5 years, it's going to end up being way more for the same thing. It could be. I mean, we've seen a lot of growth over the last few years, and it continues. I mean, I'm a native to Miami, so I was born and raised here. And sometimes it's like you're taken back yourself. You're like, wow, I can't believe somebody's willing to pay this. But look, that's the way you thought 4 years ago. It just continues happening. And right when you think things may be slowing down, no. There's another wave that comes through and just consumes the inventory. And now that's your basis for the next round of sales. I don't see an oversupply. I do hear there is oversupplies in other markets. But what we've been seeing here in South Florida between some of the premier residential neighborhoods, no. Because all these corporate companies who are moving here are bringing their top executives. And those families are buying these neighborhoods. A lot of people want to break into like the luxury market, and maybe they sell like one, maybe two here. You consistently sell a handful of homes every single year in the luxury market. What do you think that takes? Because there's stuff you do daily, weekly, monthly to build that clientele.
It's a foundation. As an agent, we all dream that we want to sell those large homes, right?
Yeah.
But I also think that kind of the things that I learned earlier is you have to kind of walk before you run. It takes time. Today with technology, a lot of clients have just as much knowledge as we do, right? Because they have access just like we do to Zillows of the world and the MLX and Realtor.com and public records to be able to gain knowledge. Now, I also see that experience is very important, and you know what works, what doesn't work. You know what people gravitate to, what people don't gravitate to. For example, a floor plan, right? You could grab 5,000 square feet of a house and design it 5 different ways. There's one way that's going to work really well, and there's 4 others that might not be that attractive. This business works through loyalty, through knowledge, and through creating a basis. Because tomorrow, they might want to sell that house, or their aunt or uncle, their sister, or their brother might want to buy something. And if you do well to your client, that's going to be the best word of referral for you. And that's where I've really built a lot of my business. The way I looked at this business is, this is my career. I come from a family of, my parents immigrated to this country in the 60s. My dad was an attorney in his country, came here to wash plates and stuff like that. So he really had to grind to kind of provide for us. Mm-hmm. Same thing with my mother or our mother. And as time went on, everybody kind of regained and involved in the States. As our first generation as American, school was the only option in our house. My oldest brother, he went to medical school, and he became the best he could be in his career. My middle brother, which is really still an older brother to me, he became an attorney. And when he graduated in FSU, at the Florida Bar, he took #1 placement. Today, looking back, all 3 of us have one thing in common. It's the hard work ethics and the commitment to excel in life. And I look at my business just like my brother sees it, and my other brother sees it. And he takes every single day as serious as the last day. And you're just as good in our business, in the real estate business, as your last deal. You have to be the best that you can be. And, a lot of realtors slack. But I think it gets to a point where this is really your career, you have to be committed. You have to be very serious. Let's look at the sports, the top athletes, even the athletes themselves that might not be the big name. Those guys practice every day. My son's into baseball, so he's little, but he loves it, and he's dedicated. Nobody tells him to grab a bat and go outside and hit the cage and hit the net. He does it on his own. And I'm starting to see the same thing that I see in myself, the same thing I see in my brothers. It's the dedication. I used to do mock interviews all the time. I used to talk to the mirror. It's kind of crazy to say that. Or I would sit with Abuela across the street and tell her, hey, I got to do this pitch. Can you just look pretty and smile and let me see how it sounds? And then I would grab a little tape recorder and listen to myself. I'm like, I don't like that. Nobody is on top of pushing you. I don't have really a boss, right? But I do. My bosses are my clients. I commit to them. I have to perform, and I have to overperform. Because a lot of brokers overpromise and underdeliver. And what my theory is, it's got to be the other way around. But you have to give it your all. And if you don't, then somebody else will.
Looking at the way it kind of built you and your brothers, was there anything that inspired all of you as a kid?
So we come from Cuban background. Mm-hmm. And dictatorship took over Cuba in the 1960s. And, you hear these stories. I've never been to Cuba myself, but you hear all these stories from a lot of Cubans. It's the Venezuelans have just gone through it too. And it's going to continue through Latin America. Unfortunately, communism is horrible. They want to make everybody the same. That's not the way it should work. You should be rewarded for what you do. You decide to be a bum and not do anything all day, well, that's your reward. But if you go out there and you grind every day, and you make things happen, you should be rewarded. So that's the motive we've all had. We all had an opportunity in this country. And that's why people love the United States. And we're free here. So you could create everything that you want to create. And all of us saw our family lose everything. So we indirectly want to gain things back, right? And the only way you're going to gain it is by being honest, working hard, and making things happen. Our culture maybe was impacted a little different to some other cultures. We just were raised humble and that good work ethics, and that's a lot of the foundation for a lot of stuff. And that's why I see that I want them. Since I was young, I always wanted to have a nice car. I wanted to have a nice boat. In fact, I'll be honest with you, I got into real estate because I love boating and how much I wanted to buy a boat. Mom and dad were going to buy it, so I needed to create it. And how do you create it? Is working hard, making things happen.
It kind of reminds me of my friend who grew up in Iraq and grew up during the war, and he had to move out really early. Yeah. You grew up really quickly when you deal with all of that stuff. Right. It kind of sounds like you had to kind of grow up a little early and quick too. Right.
It also helps being the youngest of 3, right? Because everybody's mature. I love the core of the family because I've always had role models. I just don't have mom and dad. I have 2 good brothers. I've always been very supportive, and you learn through other people's mistakes too, right? Mm-hmm. Or whatever the case might be. You you try to always better improve yourself, right? Again, it's working on yourself, working on your craft, who you are, and what's best for you. And I've always been one of those people that always thinks ahead, right? A lot of people think in the now and in the moment, and they make poor decisions. You have to think about the future and what's best for you and your family. And now being a father of two, every move I make is their future. So for me, it's very important, really thinking ahead now.
So everything that you're building now, you want to inspire your kids, like this is how to...
Yeah, I have two kids, a daughter and a son. And, they're young, but I instill into them little things that were instilled to me when I was young. I remember going into the office with my dad. That to me was fun. I tell my daughter, hey, you coming with me to go show home? She's like, I'll go to the office. But it doesn't matter. As long as she gets to kind of live outside of her world and see how the future's coming. And that way she could see little things that are coming. And my idea is that expose them to as many good things as possible and let them choose their career. I'm not going to push them to do what I want to do for them to do. Though they're smart, they'll figure it out.
So selfishly asking, I don't have kids right now. It's in the cards.
Absolutely. That's a different chapter of life. Enjoy it in the moment.
So I was curious, you're very ambitious and driven. How do you make time for both and not let one drop?
So it's tough. We figure it out. We figure out the schedules, and my son plays baseball now, and I was just the assistant coach this year and the year prior, and that's a commitment itself because there's practices, there's games, and baseball's intense. And then my daughter is into equestrian, and then she's into volleyball, and she's an athlete too, and now she's actually wanting to get into softball. So it's hard to balance, but we figure it out, and we try to do everything as a family.
I'm sure early on you might have had the same feeling where it's you could feel guilty kind of taking off. And if you go on vacation, clients are going to call you, stuff's going to burn.
Yeah, it happens, but you manage to know your business well enough when you've been doing this for a long time that you know exactly when you can actually take some days off. Your high moments, your low moments, when people are traveling, so you kind of gravitate towards that. Of course, you also have to balance school and the kids' schedule, but there's always a sweet spot, and we manage to figure it out every year. And luckily, I also have a very good back office. Basically, we all cover each other and we all help each other out. It's a competitive business, but when you figure out who your real friends in the industry are, they're always going to take care of you. You can't disconnect, unfortunately, and that's the way this business runs, right? Even if I'm on vacation, I'm still working because I'm on calls in the morning, I'm on calls in the middle of the day, I'm on text messages all day. So you have to unfortunately, stay plugged in. You have to.
Amit's actually said a lot of nice things. He's you're one of the most genuine, kind of shirt off the back type guy. So you said a lot to that. Kind of talking to the back office, the Ritz Carlton experience that you wanted to give to clients. Right. It's not usually the big things. It's all the small things that create that experience.
The details.
Can you talk to that and what you guys do?
Yeah, it's the details are very important. And in the luxury market, it's all about details, right? Because it's based on an experience. The way I look at it is, you walk into a store, okay? Let's say, I don't know, let's pick Chanel, or let's pick Louis Vuitton. Things are perfect, right? The presentation, the white glove service, the way they bring something out. Now, you look at this building's 4,000 square feet, but they only have 10 bags. That doesn't make sense, right? Versus you go to a different store, and it's one bag on top of the other. It's all about presentation. It's the lifestyle, it's the experience. If you go into a high-end dealership, Ferrari, McLaren, whatever the case might be, it's the same style. When you look at luxury real estate, it's the same concept, right? There's houses, and then there's other houses. And yes, there's different budgets, and there's different neighborhoods, and there's different lifestyles. But at the end of the day, people want things that are unique. So when you're looking for real estate, when you're buying real estate, you want things that not everybody else has. That's the luxury sector. And also it's in the experience. It's how that house is going to fulfill that home, or that household or that family. It's the experience. Yes, you could go and buy a house down the street and it's going to cost you half, but you could buy in this neighborhood, which is more exclusive. because you have the schools, because you have the police department, because you have the gated security, because you have A, B, C, and D, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm. Before all this, we could all see like the eye for detail. Like you were pointing, was this in the camera?
Right.
Was this in the shot?
Yep.
Like, are there things that you do like that with like buyers, sellers?
When I show a house, it has to be in the best condition possible. I will visit a house 3-4 times before I actually shoot it, just to make sure the paint was done, make sure the furniture was decluttered, make sure that I give the seller a tour of what my expectations are. And there's plenty of times that I cancel photo shoots because I get there and all of a sudden things didn't happen. And I'll roll up my sleeves and I'll start moving stuff around. I'll start taking the leaves out of the pool. I have a blower in my car, whatever it takes to get it done. If I could get it done, I will. You have one chance. That's the way I look at it. Mm-hmm. You have one chance to make one first lasting experience. And it all starts at the front door. And if you have a bad experience at the front door, the rest of the showing is shot.
You have a care to like getting the house not just on the market, because there's a lot of other people would be like, okay, I have the listing agreement, let's get all the media, let's get it live.
Yep.
Taking the time to prep the house?
100%. How I will probably visit a house easily 2 to 4 weeks before it hits the market. Sometimes sellers want something on the market immediately, right?
Yep.
And, look, we don't see eye to eye with everyone. It's going to happen. Sometimes people want me to do things in a way that's just not the way I'm used to doing things. Can I make exceptions? Can we do things a little different? Yes. But at the end, what happens is when things don't work out, then they start blaming you.
Yep.
And when you start going out of your path and doing things that haven't worked for you in the past just to make somebody happy, it doesn't work. So I'd rather say no and try to explain my reasoning. Remember, we're a team, right? The seller and the broker become a partnership, right? So you have to have the same goals. You have to see eye to eye. You're going to disagree a few times, especially in pricing. Every seller thinks their house is worth more than really what it is. But that's my job, to educate the seller of really what the house is worth. And what I'm going to do is going to maximize the exposure for the listing, how we're advertise it around the world, and how we're going to get people to the front door. You'd be surprised, and I'm sure you see this all the time. You just look on any website and you just look at a price point, and you're going to see toilet seats, you're going to see paper towel, you're going to see toilet paper hanging, you're going to see carpets shifted, the toothbrush, the deodorant, the shampoo, the conditioner, they're all there. It's common sense. It takes 5 minutes to reduce all that down, okay? Sometimes you're in June, July, and you're looking on the MLX, and there's pictures of a Christmas tree. Come on, that immediately tells me that listing's been on the market since 6 or 7 months, if you're in the middle of the year. Why hasn't that agent taken the extra time and effort to remove that? So there are little details, and I'm very detail-oriented, and I've only learned that through time because it's easier to do things the right way once than having to do them 2 or 3 times.
So I'm sure throughout all of this, you kind of built up a process that you guys run through for listing. Can you talk about that a little high level, like what that process looks like to get a house on the market to your standard? Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. It all depends, Not everybody has the luxuries of having assisted help at home. So what I do is I tour homes and I give suggestions, and it's positive criticism, It's a very thin line too that I have to manage between offending someone and telling them their house is beautiful but it needs X amount of work, and telling them, what kind of needs to be done so I can be more successful in selling. So how do you deal with like pricing conversations? Because I'm sure everyone has an opinion on the price of their home, and everyone thinks it's worth more than it actually is. That's true. That's very true. I mean, look, you're going to have a little bit of everything. You're going to have sellers who'll say, look, I only sell if I have this top number. It's doable, but you have to have the right formula. Have I done that plenty of times? Yes, we do it all the time. But it's a very unique product. And what I mean by product, it's very unique characteristics of my home. Something that's very marketable, something that's over the top. Now, homes that need work are never going to hit those thresholds. Think about it. Somebody's moving from California. Somebody's moving to Chicago, New York, or wherever they're coming from. When you move to Miami, it's a whole nother world out here. You don't know a good painter. You don't know a good subcontractor. You don't know a good contractor. So you're basing everything off referrals. And unfortunately, sometimes, even as well as we might want to recommend somebody, those people just don't follow through. Once you have a buyer who's already here and their buddy had a bad experience, they're willing to pay a little bit more for something that's in better condition. Yep. So what I strive to sellers all the time is make sure your house is impeccable. Go through your house, do your own punch list. And then once you think you're done, I'll come through and then I'll do my own punch list and we'll add to that. Like I met with somebody yesterday that
they were on the fence whether they spend all this money to redo it. And my humble experience recommendation was, look, I wouldn't. Your house is beautiful the way it is. Somebody may appreciate it the way it is, or somebody might come in and just remodel the whole thing. There's a lot of different theories and methods to all this, but it's just, I would say that every situation is unique.
What does your team look like now to facilitate like the experience? Who are like the different roles?
So we have we have a great back office. I've learned this throughout time. I've had an assistant for many, many years, and we are 3 right now, and everybody has a different role. So there's pre-contract, post-contract, and then there's marketing and everything in between. You're an independent contractor. It's not a big company. I have a great backbone with the brand that we're with, and it's an international brand, which is really helpful. We have offices around the world, and we have a great support staff. This business, although people look at it as very competitive, people are willing to help out and give a hand and discuss, and that's how you build relationships in this.
As someone who's like eye for detail, was it hard at first letting go with the team?
It is, because I micromanage a lot, but it's a lot of easy basic stuff that we do, and a lot of it is very similar. So once you get used to the rhythms and the methods and where things are, it just kind of comes together. But it's a lot of attention to little things.
How do you hold your team like accountable to the same level that you want?
We all share passion for the same thing, right? But we are all good in our own different specialties, right? Everybody has a different role, and everybody is good at something. There's nobody that's perfect, right?
Yep.
So we all manage to learn our strength or our weakness, and we all assist each other. And that's the way it's always been. It's everybody puts in, and that's how it all comes together.
I was curious, because you do have a lot of listings. What are some of the things that you do on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis?
So that's a tough question because it's hard to pinpoint.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just word of mouth. It's referral. People know who I am. People know my success in the area. I've been the dominant agent in this particular zip code for the last 6 years. Dominant agent in other surrounding neighborhoods as well. I'm passionate about what I do, so it comes organically.
I imagine you picking this area, Pinecrest, Coral Gables, surrounding areas, like doing that versus, oh, I'm going to go sell up at Miami Beach or all the way down south. That helped.
Started my business at the beach. When I was young, when I graduated high school, I actually lived on the beach for a good amount of time. And that's where you kind of start. I always tell people is kind of start where you live, right? Because you tend to gravitate towards the areas that you kind of gather in, right? Whether it's your family that lives in an area or whether you live in an area. I lived on the beach. I moved down south to Brickell, and then kind of I had a niche going on there, and that was great. And then there's a chapter change, and then, you kind of gravitate to that. And what happened here was very organic. In fact, I wasn't really even focused on it. It just kind of fell in my hands, one deal after the other deal after the other deal, and it's just kind of where I live, right? So people always ask, well, where do you live? What areas do you like? Where have you lived? Well, why wouldn't you live here? And it's just what we call home.
Kind of talking earlier about like new construction, when you know like you are passionate about the product, you're passionate about it, where you live, you're going to be able to be the expert there because you're going to know it a lot more.
That's true. Yeah.
So I was curious, how do you like follow up with people for 3 years? Like, what are things that you do to stay in touch and like not come off like too salesy, but then also like
it's years after years after years compounding relationships, but yet maintaining them, right? Because that's important too. If you have a good cardiologist, you're going to go to that cardiologist because that's the person you trust for that. If you have a good attorney, you're going to go to that attorney, even though they might not be specific to that general, whatever you might need them for. They're going to assist you and redirect you, and that's kind of what we do. We're a real estate advisor, so we advise people around the world. Now, if somebody wants to buy in New York City, I have a great partner in New York. If somebody wants to buy in Spain, I have a great partner in Spain. What you're doing is you're an advisor for the best needs and wants of your client, and you're going to match that client with the right person.
You've probably built up almost secondhand like this skill with relationships, because there's a lot of people. It's easy to lose touch if you're not intentional.
Right.
So are there any things that you do intentionally to stay in touch?
I mean, we do a lot of the basic stuff everybody else does. A lot of email, social media, a lot of indirect marketing, advertising, and there's a way we keep in touch with those people too. So we use great technology and tools just to stay fresh in front of everyone.
For example, every 6 months or 12 months, say, hey, here's kind of like an update on your home value, anything like that?
It depends, because if you sell somebody a house, for example, like this, in 6 months, you're not targeting them, trying to see if they'll sell the house.
Yeah.
So it depends. It depends the client and the purpose of, right? So if it's a rental property, they may be searching in 6 months after it stabilizes for another rental property, right? If it's an investment income producing property, then there might be a different angle there. If it's their single family home, it's different because they're not going to be a seller in 6 months.
Makes sense. Yeah. So I was curious, where did like your love for like boating, sailing, the ocean come from?
What happens when you grow up in Miami? It's what you do on the weekends. You go to the beach and fish and go out in the water and have fun. So with this weather out here, you could do it 365, so every day out of the year, which is fun. That's kind of like the little escape, to get away for a few hours, go fishing early morning, come back midday, and still manage to be able to get all your showings in.
What do you see as like the future of Miami for you guys?
Look, I think Miami has a great future. I saw it 20 years ago when I took off to Latin America, and I saw what Miami is all about. I recall every time I left, I couldn't wait to come back. Then I realized why everybody wants a piece of the city. And today, it's become a lot more than what I expected to be. Our downtown and our Brickell skyline has completely changed. Our culture, our diversity, everything has grown. And this is where I remember that Miami is a Riviera of the Americas. And it has just grown and grown and grown. And it's basically the next New York City. So I think the potential is incredible. I think it's going to continue growing as long as these big tech companies continue coming. All these big companies are coming to South Florida. And I think that this is one of the best places to live for so many reasons.
If you had to compare it with like the other world-class cities in America, San Francisco, New York City, like how would you compare it to a client if they came to you? Yeah,
so I personally never lived in either New York or California, but I've visited plenty of times. But I will tell you that I do have a lot of clients from both markets. And just hearing what they're saying, it's incredible what's going on in those major cities and what Miami has so much to grow. What's going on in California now with everything, the crime and the bombs and everything that's going on. I mean, we're clean, we have a good, healthy economy. Our crime rate is low. And that's one of the benefits of living in these small suburbs in Miami-Dade County. Whether it's Coconut Grove, whether it's Coral Gables, whether it's Pinecrest, whether it's South Miami, they're all incorporated. And they all have their own police department. So that makes it even extra special. And the fact that you have international flights for all different parts of the world, straight out of Miami International, is fantastic. You could take a boat ride for an hour and a half and you're in the Bahamas. And you could take a drive and you could be in Orlando in 3 hours. I mean, we're at the southern tip of the United States, but it's different down here. And it just really makes this city unique, and there's a spot for everybody.
Yeah, it's one of a kind city for sure.
It sure is. It sure is.
So if people want more, where should they go to follow you?
MichaelMartinezRealtor is my handle, and you can also visit my website, which is MichaelMartinezRealtor. I'm the Vice President at Sotheby's, and it's been a great experience and living here and offering all these beautiful homes to people from all different parts of the world.
Nice. So if you had to speak to your younger self and you could only give them one message, what would you say?
Aim for the stars, be persistent, knowledgeable, and be the best you can be.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.